Hello and welcome to the Media Room. OML is one of those companies which the digital media ecosystem which we've seen sort of forming up over the last 20 years has thrown up. It's a bit of everything. It's a bit of a talent management agency, it's a bit of an digital advertising agency, and it's a producer of content among other things. From Zakir Khan and Tanmay Bhatt to Gopal Dutt, it handles several of India's top stand-up comics, writers, YouTube creators. One of its biggest investors has been the KKR-backed Emerald Media. In fact, it's been the longest. I think since 2015, KKR has been invested in OML. And OML actually, to my mind, is a proxy for a whole lot of the new media ecosystem which is forming within the business. And that's why I took a deep dive into trying to understand how OML fits into the Indian media and entertainment ecosystem. I had a long chat with Tushar Kumar, who is the CEO and a director in the company. Hi, Tushar. Welcome to the Media Room. Wonderful to have you here. Actually, I've been wanting to speak to OML for a long time simply because I'm a Zakir fan and I know Zakir is a talent that you handle. But really, OML does so many different things: content creation, artist management, events. Could you give my listeners and viewers a quick overview of what is OML all about? And then we'll get into more details.
Got it. Super. Thank you for having me, Vanita. It's really exciting to be here. I think, what you're asking about OML, a lot of people ask us, what does OML actually do? It's a little bit of the story of the blind man and the elephant. So whatever part of OML they've dealt with, for them, that OML becomes that in entirety, right? So some people think we're only an artist management company. But I think over the years, and I think the great thing about OML is we've been shapeshifters. We've shifted with the tides of business and as sort of digital happened. Um, but we essentially have about three main areas of business now. Artist management, like you said, it is our legacy business. That's the oldest business we had. We used to manage independent musicians. Then that sort of evolved into managing comedy in a big way. And now we manage about 100 artists across comedy, creators, other sorts of genres like beauty, travel, writers as well. So it's a mixed bag of talent, about 100 odd people that we manage. That talent management business still remains one of our strongest businesses at OML. The second bucket really is the branded content agency businesses that we run. We run three agencies right now at OML. One which is something we launched very recently called MO, which is our creative agency business. So we do everything from your TVCs to DVCs to managing your socials. And we recently did a really interesting Canva campaign as well. Hypothesis, which is our influencer marketing agency. So you're a brand, you want to do some work with influencers. We sort of work with them. And it's interesting because we've been working with influencers for now over 8 years. And that started with something called 1862, which is an agency we actually set up for Bacardi. So 1862 as an agency works only on the Bacardi mandate. It's a retainer we've had for the last 7 years. We work on branded content and influencer marketing for Bacardi brands. And we've worked across about 21 odd countries. The biggest market there for us is actually Poland, where we do a lot of work for Bacardi and its portfolio of brands. Those are the branded content businesses that we own. And then there's OML Studios. This is where we've been making long form content. So we've made about 62 odd shows. 62 odd shows between Amazon Prime and Netflix over the last many years. Our next show called Bandwale, starring Shalini Pandey, Zahan Kapoor, Swanan Kirkire, is going to also come out soon on Amazon Prime. That's the next show that's coming out for us. So, and also in OML Studios, we do a lot of line production work for other agencies as well. So it's really interesting what we're doing there. We exited the live events business in 2021. So we sold the live events business and all of the IPs to Nodwin Gaming. And before that in 2017, we actually had built insider.in at OML, and we exited that to Paytm. And now Paytm has further exited that to Zomato, which is now District.
let's come back to OML. So what is OML
Yes.
is artist management, branded content, no live events now. You do
No.
production, or your live shows. Those are the three big
Yes.
buckets. Is that fair to say?
Yes. Artist management, branded content, and the studios business.
Okay. And of this, which is the largest proportion of your? I know you mentioned that top line figures cannot be discussed, but which is the largest proportion of your top line?
So the agency side of the business is already about 60% of our revenue.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
And when you look at the work we do with brands, right? So there's obviously the agency side of the business, but when you also add to it all of the work that our talent is doing for brands, that makes up about 79-80% of all of our business, which is working with brands.
Okay. Okay. And so brands, agency, talent management, and agency is the biggest business. Correct? Have I got that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
If I was to draw a parallel with some other company, what would you draw a parallel with, Tushar, as far as OML is concerned? Which other
I think that
company in India or overseas would compare to an OML in what it does in the portfolio?
I don't think there's any straight comparison because different parts of our businesses actually compete with different businesses. So for example, MO, our creative agency, you'd
Mm-hmm.
compare with all of the traditional agencies out there because those are the same pitches that we're working for and
Correct.
on. So whether that's an Ogilvy or a Saatchi or whoever, we're all pitching now for very similar work. When you look at the artist management business in India, obviously you have many artist management companies in India as well, right? And when you look at the studios business, it's again another set of comparisons. So it's interesting the combination we have now, and it's a flywheel which sort of feeds into each other as well.
Mm-hmm.
But very different sets of businesses in that sense.
Which is the fastest growing? Which is the one with the maximum potential, and which is the one which contributes most to bottom line or to profitability?
It's again the agency side of the business. That's something
Okay.
we've been focusing on for the last 3 years. The advertising and branded content side of the business. We've sort of built that out, and that's grown really fast for us over the last 4 years.
Fantastic.
And we've been focusing a lot on that. And as a result of that, like say for example, something new that we started last year is that we've built a small incubation team at OML where we do sports specific content as well. So we're
Mm-hmm.
working with a lot of teams and leagues. Like we work with the Haryana Steelers, with the Pretoria Capitals. We did the
Mm-hmm.
pickleball league last year.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's an extension that's come out of what we've been doing for brands, but here we're doing it for sporting brands as well. So we're very excited on the extensions that are going to be possible over the next few years. Again, with the entirety of what we're building.
How is it different running OML versus running any other media company? That was one of the things which, when I was researching you, I'm saying, okay, how is it different from running, if I was to look at a similar scale that OML has, of how many employees would you be right now?
We're at about 240 employees.
So, in at that scale, let's say a broadcaster at that scale, or a digital company at that scale, or a newspaper company at that scale, or any other, a radio company, which would probably fall in somewhere in that scale. How is it different running an OML? Is it a variety of things you do, or is it the nature or the texture of the business?
So I think it's a combination of both.
Mhm.
Being a CEO of a company where we do such diverse work is always very interesting. But I think what's been really great for us is, like the artist management business, for example, that keeps our ears so close to culture because and then that feeds into our knowledge on when we're talking to brands to talk about a trend before it happens. So
Fantastic
we
insight.
build
That's a very good insight. Yeah. Good. Huh.
and it's been great for us. We saw comedy before comedy the boom happened, and then
Mm.
we produced many specials for Amazon Prime. We did a lot of work with comedians. We did a lot of live shows. So I think being in OML, the great thing is about trying to understand what's next, and we are
Mm.
always doing that. We're trying to figure what could we do differently, and we believe in disruption all the time. So we keep on shooting down our own ideas and saying, hey, is it too fuddy duddy? Are we being too old? This is a marketing campaign which should have happened 4 years ago. So that sort of keeps us on the toes, and all of these businesses really help us do that.
But you know what? One of the things when I look at your portfolio, you said you had 100 artists or talent that you represent, more
Mm-hmm,
than.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Is it correct to surmise that a bulk of them are comedians? Or comedy is like a major portion, or comedians are a major portion of who you represent? That's a major area you play in. That's the
No,
big area
absolutely.
you.
See,
Yeah.
so comedy is very woven into our DNA, right? Whether it's the
Ah,
artists we manage or shows like Comic Stand, which we created and then produced. But when you look at our roster, it's fairly diverse. So out of the 100 people on our roster, we've got about 25 comedians. Then we've
oh,
got creators. Yes, so we've got creators from all over, right? So while we manage a Tanmay Bhatt, a Zakir Khan, a Kullu, we'll also manage someone like Rohin Bell, who's a creator entrepreneur who's going to run the Antarctica Marathon.
oh,
We manage someone like Sutej Pannu, who's a beautiful storyteller, photographer. I don't know if you've seen his content, and he does beautiful storytelling on Instagram. And someone like Aisha Sanghi, who's one of the most honest beauty voices out there. So we've diversified, and I think the way we look at talent management is we're not bound by categories anymore. If we think we can add value to your life with the ecosystem we have at OML, we'd love to work with US talent. Even Saranj Goyla, who's a chef, we represent him. And again, we get to do such different work with each of these creators. And that's, I think, what's been awesome for us.
I have two questions here. One, do you pick the creators or the stand-ups or whoever else that or do they pick you? I mean, how organic is that process? And B, this because I was asking about, you represent some big stand-up comedians, and you're very keen that ecosystem. Is it different from other genres? So when I look at an entertainment or when I look at a sports, because I think stand-up is becoming its own sort of, in fact, I'm doing a large piece of work on it, is becoming its own sort of planet as far as a content genre goes. So how is it different? So there are two questions. Yeah, sorry, this is a bad habit I have, asking multiple
No, no
questions.
problem. So I'll answer your first question. It works both ways, right? When we see talent who we feel is someone whose content we vibe with, is someone who we think we could add value to, we reach out. And there are times where people reach out to us asking us for representation, and then we meet them and we see if there's something we can do where we can either create something new or sort of add value to their lives, and that's when we onboard an artist. Now, when it comes to comedians, right, the amazing thing about working with comedians is that, and if you think back a little bit in time when YouTube just started happening, is they are the people who drove YouTube. They were the first creators who landed on. They created all of this content on YouTube, got everyone to come in, and then what they did magically is they're also the people who drove audiences to the OTT platforms. When the OTT platforms first came to India, Bollywood was not giving them too much attention. And also, how do you get young people to start watching content on OTT? You needed all of the comics and their muscle power to get the young audiences onto the OTT platforms. So when you work with comedians, I think the most amazing thing about them is they are writers, directors, uh, improvisers on the spot, and I think that amazing versatility you see in very few categories of artists when you work with. So comedy will always have a special place in our hearts because those artists are just really versatile, and you can see it. They've like say someone like Tanmay, who's an entrepreneur now, and he's also started now an advertising agency with his partner Devaya. It's called Moonshot, and they've been putting out ad campaign after ad campaign, which has been doing really well. You have Zakir, who's now started Sakt Films, and he's producing under Sakt Films both fiction and non-fiction content. So the way comedians have been able to diversify into doing many other things is also really amazing to see.
You know, many of these businesses wouldn't have been born but for the internet. Do you think, even if we had premium TV and all the other sh- shindigs which developed markets have, we never got premium TV. Do you think this ecosystem would have developed quite the way which where an OML fits in as a media company or somebody else, or a stand-up comedy as a genre by itself fits in.
No,
It's just,
absolutely. I mean, the internet changed our lives, or
yes.
more. I'd say all of our new businesses are
Huh.
because the internet happened. I
Hmm.
like to tell everyone this really interesting thing. This is back when we did live events. I used to work at OML on marketing a lot of the live events, and I was working on our music festival, which was the Bacardi NH7 Weekender, which we used to do back in the day.
Hmm.
And one of the founders called me and he pulled me off the Weekender, which was my passion project to work
Hmm.
on. And he said, "Oh, you have to go work on a new event. It's something we're doing for YouTube." And I was really like,
Fantastic.
really, yes. So the first fan fest in India was what OML
Oh,
produced.
they just
And I
had the fan.
remember,
Uh,
yes, yes, yes. They just had one now. We did it for the first 6 years.
uh,
Then we sold the company, the live events part of it. But at that
oh,
fan fest, we had a very, very big Bollywood star
uh,
present.
uh,
And then Lily Singh came on stage.
uh,
And when I saw the audience react to Lily Singh versus our big Bollywood star, was the day I realized that the internet is going to change everything, and it
uh,
did. And I think we sort of and have always been now sort of building businesses using the internet. And when
uh,
you think of it, even comedians when they sell out arenas,
mm,
it's so important that their last feed of content on YouTube is interesting because that's
mm,
what drives sales on tickets,
mm,
even in
mm,
stadiums. So everything's
mm.
become very interlinked now.
We missed the other question, which how do you choose the artist or the talent? How
Yeah.
organic
So
is the process? Huh?
So I was mentioning we do it works both ways. So
Uh,
sometimes when we're looking at content online, when we're looking at artists, we say, hey, we really like this person. Let's reach out and see if they want to work with us. Right? You might
mm-hmm.
discover them on YouTube. You might discover them on Instagram. We just signed with a musician, Bhuvan, who's a Sufi singer. We saw his videos on Instagram and we reached out, and now we're working with him. He's touring in Australia already, and we're
Mm-hmm.
building out an international tour for him. The other way is when artists reach out to us, can ask us for representation,
That
which is
must be
again
kind
when we
of
sit down.
download. That must be tons of them reaching out to you. I mean,
A lot
is a
of
lot.
Yes, a lot of people do, and now the best way to reach out is actually Instagram. So Instagram DMs are always flooded. But
Oh,
I think what's really important for us when we do get reach outs is if we feel we are not able to add that value, because
mm-hmm.
with the artist management business, we're not trying to build a factory. We don't want
Huh.
to represent 300, 400, 500 people. We
People.
want to represent 100 people who we enjoy working with.
Huh.
Also, artist management isn't a business which you can run like a scaled mass production business because it's
Mm-hmm.
so much personal touch.
Mm-hmm.
So which is why we're really careful with the people we work with.
Hmm. But talent management is a tough business in the sense, it's we love watching them as an audience, and I've interviewed them, you deal with them, but they're also people. And in this day and age, because the internet has created many of them, I mean, the whole influencer marketing area is a completely internet created creature.
Hmm.
A Deepika Padukone as an influencer because she was created outside the internet, and that's why she
Hmm.
is important. But
Hmm.
Prajakta Kohli or whoever, I'm taking names which come quickly to me. No, this thing that OML ka talent nahi hai. But how do you balance that thing? Because you're managing them, you're doing shows with them, uh, because they're also people. How do you handle the controversy part of it? There always something is bursting up. I live in Pune, so on Pune Times or Delhi Times or Bombay Times or where
Right. Yes.
some little thing. Those poor guys can't have a personal life. I feel sometimes. But how do you handle it as the agency, which is?
Right. No, I think as artist managers, that's always the most interesting part of the business. And you never get into artist management if you want to build a safe business, right? And
You're
art
saying
without
every
controversy.
artist will suffer for what?
No, no. I mean, we don't want anyone to suffer, and obviously, we
Yeah,
chat with
so I
them
hear
based on the environment that exists. But I
you.
think if artists don't create controversy, the world will be very boring. And if artists don't have a voice, we won't have opinions out there. So I think it's really nice to be able to work with people who have opinions which they wear on their shoulders. Sometimes they
Uh,
get into trouble for it.
uh,
Sometimes, and then you have to manage the trouble with them. But
uh,
I think, in general, as a business, yes, it is a challenging business to run. And artist managers are some of the most amazing professionals you'll meet out there. because it's a 24/7 job. You're thinking about, and artist managers are multifaceted, right? You're thinking PR, you're thinking commercials, you're thinking travel, you're thinking
Mm,
calendars.
mm,
So it is also a profession which needs a lot of new talent to come in
mm,
and grow as the industry is growing.
mhm,
But I feel like you can't run an artist management company being worried about the repercussions of it. You can
mm.
talk to your artist to make sure that you're protected and they're protected legally in the best way possible.
Uh, if you if on the agency side of the business, if a brand wants to, or on the branded content side of the business, if a brand wants to work with an artist who's not part of your portfolio, how is
Right.
there a conflict? How do you handle it?
So that part of the business is a separate part, like hypothesis. So for example, our influencer marketing agency.
Uh,
Um, there, the business that we do is with artists represented by multiple agencies or even independently.
so they're
And
separate emails and separate.
absolutely, absolutely.
Oh, okay, okay,
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Oh,
And we've never seen that conflict rise, because whenever whichever artist works best for the brand campaign,
mhm.
that's who we recommend. And it could be our artist, it could be someone else, and that's really worked well for us.
You also handle some global content creators and artists. How does that work? And what are the, if I was to say any comparisons, like you do Bacardi events in Poland, or if you work in other markets. So A, how is it handling artists or creators from other markets versus handling them in India? I mean, are the ecosystems starkly different? And what are the challenges to both of them?
Right. We've had the opportunity to work with artists actually across multiple countries now. And I think what's been interesting is, we've worked in, say, a place like the Democratic Republic of Congo, where the internet is still developing. In Russia, where we did a lot of work, Russia before the war used to actually be our largest market, even in
Uh,
terms of revenue. Um,
uh,
and which is very evolved with the creator ecosystem, very, very evolved in Russia.
uh,
To say, working in Southeast Asia, in Thailand, in Philippines, where they're still evolving. So
mhm,
I think working with artists across the world is similar. Obviously, there are cultural nuances. So, for
mhm,
example, when we did our first campaign in Japan,
mhm,
we sent the camera crew to the artists' houses, and then we
mhm,
didn't realize culturally in Japan people don't allow outsiders into their houses, and it was a big challenge for us. So we had to shoot outdoors. So we've
mhm,
had cultural nuances like that, which we've now learned over the years. But
mhm,
artists are very similar, right? They want to be able to express themselves. They don't
mhm,
want a brand messaging to drown out what they are trying to say or their style.
mhm.
But just different levels of evolution. So, for example, when we did our first campaign in Lebanon, very interestingly, we
Mhm.
worked with comedians in Lebanon. Now, we had a lot of experience working with comedians in India, and
Huh.
Lebanon did not have a late night show. So, we created Lebanon's first late night television show with a comedian. And
Oh,
that was amazing experience for us as well as for them. So, it's been really great sort of dipping into what we learned in India and taking it to other parts of the world.
but when you do this, like Lebanon or Russia, do you
Yes.
hire locals or do the Indians handle? I'm just curious. How does it work?
Yeah, it's a combination. So, like in Poland, we have three Polish employees who sort of work with us, with a team from India as well.
Mm-hmm.
But for example, we also work with a lot of sort of consultants in those local markets. Like in the Republic of Congo, none of us speak French in office. So we have a partner who then helps us work with the right talent, helps us sort of shoot on ground partners who we're working with. So, but it all comes together.
This is, I find this very fascinating. This whole, see, the agency business one gets the branded
Yeah.
content, but this whole talent management is, I don't think, more than 10 to 15 years old, even as a
Mhm, mhm.
ecosystem in India, correct? I mean, if I look at the earlier avatars also. If I was to ask you, what are the most exciting parts of the business right now? See, I'm more excited by the talent part, but when you look at the portfolio as a CEO, what is the most
Right.
exciting part? What is the thing which makes you get up in the morning and say, "Oh, this is going to be fun"? Because you are in a fun business in that sense.
Yeah. No, very difficult question to answer
See
because
what I.
uh, none of our businesses are boring, which is why it becomes difficult. But I think some of the
Ah,
things I'm really excited about right now is this sports content business we're building? Because I do think sports entertainment, and I don't mean sports, in your the traditional way of just cricket and people watching football, the European matches. But I feel like how the leagues are growing. Yes, some leagues are doing well, some are not. But you're seeing leagues pop up. You're seeing non-mainstream sports come into, and you don't have to tune into television anymore, right? You're following sports on your Instagram feed. So when the rugby league happened, I bet none of the people who watched the content on Instagram Reels had seen rugby before as a sport. So again, coming back to what we spoke about, the internet is changing even access for so many things. So we have a lot of hope in sort of building this business out.
Okay. But
Yeah.
are you looking at sports other than cricket? I hope.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So, for example, while we did work with the Mumbai Indians on their content for their Instagram reels. We
Mm-hmm.
have worked with kabaddi. We have worked with pickleball. We are
Oh,
currently speaking to two, three other sports, which are actually all non-cricket. So
thank
for us, a lot of that is exciting, and like what I was saying that earlier, a lot of these sports didn't do well because you didn't want to sit for 1 hour and watch a sport you didn't know. But
you.
now you don't
Going
mind
to the
engaging
shorts.
with exactly, and that's
But
completely changed
how
everything.
monetizable is that, Tushar? I mean, if you're engaging with a sport, but you're not into it, it's like F1. I feel people, Drive to Survive is the show, right? The F1 show, if I'm
Yes,
not mistaken.
yes, 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 yeah,
People who know nothing about F1 will got engaged with it and watched F1 the movie.
yeah.
But does that help? I don't know. It helps build the sport to build revenues. But
Mhm.
what does it do for the sport itself? Is what I'm wondering. I don't know
No,
how
it
to.
does help. Like when the Queen's Gambit came out in on Netflix, and
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
chess sort of completely changed, right? And I think what Samay Raina has done for chess in India is get
Mm,
Gen Z excited about chess. And
correct.
I think the merging of pop culture, counterculture, and sports is what is going to keep helping sports grow. Now the Wimbledon is
Mm,
as much about the cocktail that went viral,
mm.
the fashion at the Wimbledon, and everything else. And if that is what is going to get young people excited to watch the sport, great. At least it's getting people interested and helping these sports, stay relevant. So I'd look at it from that perspective.
Wimbledon is like this new ascot used to be these horse races where women wore all these fancy clothes with hats and all. I think Wimbledon
Right.
is a new ascot. Um,
No, absolutely.
uh, if I was to ask you, what are the uh, three big things which your you know which OML has learned in these years and which it is using in order to build. So more than the learnings, it is what is going to be building this business going into the future. And I know KKR was invested into the company, correct? Now they've exited, if I'm
Yes.
not. Who are the
No,
big
no, there's still
investors? They're still
They still,
investing.
yes,
They're
yes,
still.
yes. KKR are our largest, KKR via Emerald Media, which is their holding. KKR owns Emerald Media. They're
Yeah.
still our largest investors. The Times Group as well, Vinit Jain's
Mm,
office,
mm.
and then there are a few more people on the cap table. But yes,
I like the word cap table. I haven't heard it in such a long time. You only investment bankers and private equity guys. Um, where is growth coming for OML, both top line and bottom line? I mean, if I was to look at, because many of your investors will have some exits planned, etc. So where is the growth trunk? What is the growth trunk? That is essentially my final question.
right. I think we're seeing growth play out in two, three ways. And like I was talking about earlier, the work that we're doing on the agency side of the business has really been propelling this growth. And that's really driving revenues for us, both on the top line as well as on the bottom line. What drives cultural growth for us is our artist management business, because that's very key. Numbers will never define what that business does for us and gives to us. So that will always be a key push for us. And we've got a few interesting sort of businesses coming up within the artist management space, which we will announce soon.
Mm-hmm.
And that really keeps us true to it, right? And then there's the business of long form content. And that business makes amazing revenue in 1 year, and then maybe you wait for a few years till the next commissioning cycle and the next big show. So the OTT business is very seasonal
Hmm.
for us, and
Hmm.
like the next show once it comes out, and then we have a few conversations ongoing. So
Hmm.
that always brings in the surprises and positive surprises from time to time. But
Hmm.
that's how sort of we're betting on all of the businesses.
You know, I always wonder when you're saying your shows, etc. But that will be essentially, no, besides Zakir, I cannot remember which other stand-ups you represent. But it has to be Zakir writing fresh material, and you know, you do a deal with Amazon, etc. How does it work? Can you take me through one such thing? So where are the revenues split? Who comes in? How does it work? Just for the lay people to understand.
Yeah. So for our long form business, we do sort of fiction and non-fiction shows both.
Correct, correct.
So the stand-up, all of the stand-up shows which you're talking about, like the non-fiction side of it, that's where,
Mm,
like you rightly said, a comic will tour typically
mm,
with their show, which they will tour across a year or sometimes a year and a half, and
mm,
then eventually record it.
mm.
Once it records, and not just OML artists, right, or comedians all around. Once
Uh-huh.
it records, and then comedians take a call on whether they want to try to pitch it to an OTT platform, either to be commissioned or to be licensed, or YouTube's also sort of a great way for them to put that content out, right? And on YouTube,
Correct.
again, monetization is now not just the advertisements, but you could also have memberships, you can have super fans, etc.
Mm,
So YouTube's also got interesting ways of monetizing beyond just
correct.
the ad revenue. And YouTube, like I was telling you earlier, feeds directly into ticket sales as well, because the audience at YouTube is larger than any. I mean, it is the largest OTT still, if you look at it.
In the world.
So yes, so that's
Mm,
sort of how it's split out when it comes to comedian specific content. And obviously, it's linked to comedians writing more and more and putting out content more and more. On the fiction side of it, we work with creators across the board, right? So,
mm,
like the show I told you about, Band Wale, which
mhm,
was directed by Akshat Verma and Ankur Tiwari, was
mhm.
co-written by Swanand Kirkire and Ankur Tiwari, and we took it then to Amazon Prime, pitched it, and it
Mm.
got commissioned. So that's another route
None of these
that we
people
work.
are your talent you manage. They are outside
None.
creators. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay.
So
Okay.
as a production house, we work in a non-risk taking model. So we don't make and then try to sort of license or sell. But
Correct.
we have shows that we've built in-house with our team, and then we go out and pitch it. And if this gets commissioned, we go ahead and produce it.
Which is the big one on air right now or on online?
Um, the next one that's coming out is Band Wale. And the last show we delivered was Zakir's special again on Amazon Prime.
Delelu
And
Express. Delelu
yes,
Express.
yeah,
What was it?
yes, 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 yeah.
Super, super. That's really lovely. Thank you so much, Tushar. I've learned so much, and I hope my audience has also learned a lot about OML. And you're right. Talent management is your soft power. The what you said about about the talent bit. You said you can't measure what it does, but it is in a sense your soft power. It brings in things which are not tangible to the business. Very interesting.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Tushar,
you.
for talking to me. It's been lovely.
It was
Josh,
great
we're going.
chatting with you. Thank you.